Ambassador stood in the empty council chamber, his 6 fingers trembling as he pressed the emergency beacon one last time. The holographic displays around him showed the same horrifying story on every screen. Red markers spread across the star map like a disease, each one representing a world the swarm had consumed. 3 entire star systems were gone, not conquered, not occupied, gone. The swarm didn't take prisoners or negotiate terms. They simply ate everything in their path and moved on to the next meal. People had always been peaceful. Their philosophy centered on harmony and understanding. They had never developed weapons of war because they had never needed them. The Galactic Council had protected them for 3,000 years, but now the Council's fleets were scattered, retreating, dying. Every species that tried to fight the swarm directly had been destroyed within hours. The beacon's light pulsed in the dim chamber, sending out its message to every corner of known space. "Help us, please, anyone." No one answered. Skin shifted from its normal blue to a dull gray, the color of despair among his kind. He thought of his family hiding in the underground shelters on Prime. He thought of the children who would never see their world's 3 suns rise again. He thought of the millions who were counting on him to find a miracle. But miracles didn't exist in the cold mathematics of space warfare. A soft chime made him turn. One of the communication terminals was blinking. Someone had responded to the beacon, rushed to the console, his heart's pounding in his chest. Maybe the Empire had changed their mind. Maybe the Defense League had found reinforcements. The signal showed an origin point that made him pause. Sector 7 Alpha, the quarantine zone. Nothing was supposed to be in that sector except primitive worlds and spatial hazards. The Council had sealed it off 200 years ago after the survey teams reported conditions too hostile for civilized life. The message decoded on his screen. It was in Galactic Standard, but the translation algorithm struggled with the syntax. Someone had learned the language but spoke it strangely. "This is Captain Min of the United Earth Defense Corps, responding to your distress call. We have received your situation report. We are willing to provide military assistance. What are your coordinates?" Earth pulled up the old survey files. Yes, there was a planet designated as Sol 3, common name Earth. The reports classified it as a death world, extreme gravity, violent weather, toxic atmosphere. The survey team had noted that if any life existed there, it would be primitive and brutal, constantly fighting just to survive. This had to be a mistake. How could a death world have space travel? How could they even have survived long enough to develop technology? Another message came through. "Ambassador, we are reading increasing swarm activity near your position. Do you require immediate evacuation? We can have a ship at your location in 48 hours. 48 hours. The nearest Council fleet was 2 weeks away. Either these humans had faster ships than anything the galaxy had ever seen, or they were lying. Made a decision that would change everything. He had no other options. His people were dying. "Captain Min, yes, we accept your offer of assistance. Transmitting coordinates now. But I must warn you, the swarm is unlike anything you have encountered. They have destroyed fleets of hundreds. They adapt to every weapon we use. They cannot be reasoned with." The response came quickly. "Understood, Ambassador. We are familiar with hostile force encounters. The UEDC Indomitable will reach you within 2 standard days." Min out. Collapsed into his seat. He had just invited an unknown species from a death world to come to the heart of space. The Council would have him exiled for this breach of protocol. But what did protocol matter if everyone was dead? He spent the next 2 days preparing. The military commanders thought he was insane. How could one ship make a difference when entire fleets had failed, but had nothing else to offer them except hope, no matter how small? When the human ship arrived, it appeared on their sensors like a ghost. One moment the space was empty. The next moment, a massive vessel sat in orbit above Prime. Their stealth technology was far beyond anything the Council possessed. His first glimpse of the ship made his skin turn pale green with confusion. The UEDC Indomitable looked nothing like the elegant Council vessels with their smooth curves and artistic designs. It was a brick of metal and guns. Every surface seemed designed for one purpose: war. Weapon systems covered its hull like the scales of some ancient predator. It didn't look like it traveled through space. It looked like it conquered it. "Ambassador, this is Captain Min permission to transport to your location for briefing." "Permission granted," managed to say. The human materialized in the council chamber with a flash of light. Had seen many species in his career. He had met beings of pure energy and creatures that lived in gas giants, but nothing had prepared him for his first human. Min stood almost twice height. His body was wrapped in some kind of protective suit that looked flexible but strong. When he removed his helmet, saw a face that was simultaneously alien and disturbingly expressive. Two eyes, forward-facing like a predator. Dark hair cut short and practical. A mouth that curved into what might have been a smile. "Ambassador," Min said, his voice deep and calm. "Thank you for trusting us with this. I know we are unknown to you, but I promise you this: Earth does not abandon those who ask for help." Found his voice. "Captain, I must ask, how did your people survive? The reports say Earth is a death world. The gravity alone should have crushed the development of complex life." Min's smile became something else. Something that made instincts scream danger even though the human hadn't moved. "Ambassador, Earth didn't crush us. It forged us. Every day on our world is a fight. The weather tries to kill us. The animals try to kill us. The diseases try to kill us. Even other humans try to kill us. We didn't become smart because we were safe. We became smart because anything less meant extinction." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Watched in growing horror as the human showed him hurricanes that could flatten cities, earthquakes that could swallow mountains, predators that hunted in packs with intelligence and cruelty. "So when you sent that message asking for someone who could fight," Min continued, "you got exactly what you asked for. You got. And Captain, we are very, very good at what we do." Didn't know if he should feel relieved or terrified. He had called for monsters to fight monsters. Now he would see which monsters were stronger. The briefing room was packed with military officers, all of them staring at the humans like they were looking at creatures from a nightmare. Captain Min stood at the front with 3 members of his crew and watched as his people struggled to hide their fear. Lieutenant Commander Wu was explaining their battle plan using a holographic display. She moved with an efficiency that seemed almost mechanical, but her eyes were sharp and calculating. Every gesture was precise, every word chosen carefully. The officers leaned away from her without realizing it. "The swarm operates using a networked hive structure," Wu said, highlighting several red zones on the map. "They have forward hive nodes that coordinate attacks. If we eliminate these nodes, the swarm in this sector will lose cohesion." General, or the highest-ranking officer, made a sound of disbelief. His translator rendered it as something close to a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Lieutenant Commander, with respect, every species has tried direct assault tactics. The swarm adapts too quickly. They overwhelm through numbers. In the last engagement, we lost 40 ships before we could retreat." "How many ships did they lose?" This came from one of the other humans, a woman named Jin who wore a uniform with a red cross symbol on it. Her voice was gentle, almost kind, but something about her stillness reminded of a coiled spring. "The swarm lost perhaps 200 drones," or admitted. "But they have millions, billions. They reproduce faster than we can kill them." Jin nodded slowly. "So you are fighting a war of attrition that you cannot win. You need to change the mathematics." The third human, Sergeant Dong, stepped forward. He was broader than the others, built like one of the stone monuments in Prime's ancient city. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We are not going to fight their billions. We are going to cut off the head and let the body die." "It's not that simple," Or protested. "The hive nodes are protected by massive swarm concentrations. You would need to fight through millions of drones just to get close." Min spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "General, how many G-forces can your ships handle?" The question seemed to come from nowhere, or skin flickered with confusion. "Our vessels are rated for up to 3 gravities. Any more would injure the crew." "And your people, how many G-forces can you survive?" 4 gravities is the maximum before organ damage occurs. 5 gravities is lethal." Something passed between the humans. It might have been amusement. Min nodded. "That explains the difference in our tactical approaches. Human ships regularly operate at 12 gravities during combat maneuvers. Our pilots train at 15. We have survived 20 in emergency situations." The room went silent. Felt his stomach's twist. 20 gravities, that was impossible. Nothing made of flesh could survive that kind of force. Wu pulled up a new display. "Our plan involves high-speed insertion. We will accelerate to velocities that the swarm will not anticipate because they are based on your limitations, not ours. We will be through their defensive perimeter before they can reposition." "Your crew will be," Or said flatly. "Our crew will be fine," Dong replied. His tone suggested this was not open for debate. Jin stood and walked to the environmental controls. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the temperature settings. "Of course." She adjusted the settings and watched the temperature display drop. 25 degrees, 20 degrees, 15 degrees. The in the room began to shiver. At 10 degrees Or stood up in protest. "Medic Jin, our people cannot function in such cold. We need at least 22 degrees to maintain body temperature." Jin looked surprised. "This is 20 degrees Celsius. This is springtime weather on Earth. Comfortable. Our operational range is from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius." She raised the temperature again, her expression thoughtful. "I am sorry. I did not realize how different our tolerances are." But saw the truth in that moment. She wasn't sorry. She was calculating. She was realizing just how fragile they were compared to humans, and that realization was going into some mental file that would inform every decision she made. The meeting continued for another hour. The humans outlined tactics that sounded like suicide missions to the officers, boarding actions against swarm hive ships, close quarters combat in zero gravity, weapons that threw metal at velocities that would tear ships apart. When Or questioned the morality of using kinetic weapons that could cause collateral damage, Min's response was simple. "General, we are not here to follow your rules of engagement. We are here to win. If you want us to fight with one hand tied behind our backs, we will leave now and you can face the swarm alone." Or had no response to that. After the meeting, found himself walking with Jin through the observation deck. She had requested a tour of their medical facilities, and he was curious about this human who seemed so gentle yet carried herself like a warrior. "Medic Jin, may I ask you a personal question?" "Call me Jin," she said with a small smile. "And yes, you may ask." "You are a medical professional, a healer, yet you wear the same military uniform as soldiers. We separate our medical staff from combat personnel. They are neutral parties." Jin stopped at a window overlooking the planet below. 3 suns cast light across the peaceful blue oceans and green continents. It looked like paradise. "On Earth, we learned long ago that battles do not stop for the wounded," she said quietly. "If I want to save lives, I must go where people are dying. That means combat zones. That means learning to fight while I heal, learning to protect my patients while I treat them." She turned to look at him, and her eyes were old despite her young face. "I have performed surgery under enemy fire, Ambassador. I have held soldiers together with my bare hands while explosives fell around us. I am a healer, yes, but I am also a survivor from a world that does not forgive weakness." Felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature, Are all humans like this? Like what? So hard. Jin considered the question carefully. We are not hard, Ambassador. We are adaptive. Earth taught us to bend instead of break. But yes, every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived our world's challenges. We carry that survival instinct in our blood. She smiled again, but it was sad this time. You called for help and we came. But you should understand what you have invited into your home. We are not the heroes from your stories. We are something much more dangerous. What is that? We are what happens when prey learns to hunt. That night, watch from the command center as the UEDC Indomitable ran combat drills. The ship moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. It accelerated at speeds that would have killed his people instantly, then stopped and reversed direction with casual ease. He pulled up the ship's specifications that Min had provided. The numbers made no sense. The reactor output was 10 times what technology could produce. The hull was made from composites that could withstand impacts that would vaporize Council ships. The weapons systems included everything from laser batteries to what the humans called that threw metal slugs using magnetic acceleration. But it was the crew complement that disturbed him most. 300 humans, only 300 to crew a ship that should need thousands. And of those 300, more than half were designated as combat personnel, not security, not defense, combat. General or appeared beside him, also watching the humans practice their terrifying maneuvers. Ambassador, or said quietly, I have been reviewing historical texts from the old archives. There are legends among the ancient species about planets so hostile that any life that evolved there became something other, something that should not exist but does. And asked, though he already knew what the general would say. The legends say that if you ever encounter, you have two choices: befriend them or run from them, but never, never make them your enemy. Watched the Indomitable complete another impossible maneuver, its hull glowing red from friction with space debris. Let us hope they truly are our friends, he whispered. Tomorrow the swarm would arrive. Tomorrow they would see if humanity's confidence was justified, or if it doomed them all by inviting monsters to fight monsters. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The swarm arrived like a living nightmare pouring out of millions of chittering, clicking creatures that looked like a fusion of insect and machine. They moved in perfect coordination, a single mind controlling countless bodies. Their ships were not built but grown, organic vessels that pulsed with diseased light. Stood in the command center, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The red markers representing swarm forces outnumbered the blue markers of the defense fleet by 10 to 1, and those were just the ones they could see. Intelligence suggested millions more waited in reserve. All ships begin retreat pattern Delta 7, General or commanded. His voice was steady but could see the defeat in his eyes. They had seen this before. The swarm would overwhelm their positions within hours. UEDC Indomitable to command, Captain Min's voice came through the comm system. We are moving to engage. Or looked at in confusion. Captain, you are moving in the wrong direction. The swarm is advancing from bearing 723. You are heading directly toward them. Correct, Min replied simply. On the tactical display, the single green marker representing the human ship accelerated toward the red wall of swarm vessels. It looked like a minnow swimming toward a shark. Captain, this is suicide, or shouted, you must retreat with the fleet. General, with respect, we did not come here to retreat. Hold your defensive line, we will break their advance. The Indomitable accelerated harder. Watched the velocity readings climb to impossible numbers. 8 gravities, 10 gravities, 12 gravities. The crew should be dead, crushed by their own acceleration. But the human ship flew on like a spear thrown by an angry god. The swarm noticed the lone ship and redirected a portion of their forces to intercept. Thousands of drones changed course, creating a living net to catch the humans. It should have been the end of the Indomitable. Then the humans opened fire. Had seen Council weapons, elegant energy beams that struck with precision, missiles guided by AI, clean, efficient warfare. Human weapons were none of these things. The Indomitables spoke first. They did not fire energy. They fired metal. Simple, crude chunks of steel accelerated to percentages of. The projectiles hit the swarm drones with such force that they simply ceased to exist. One moment a swarm vessel was there. The next moment there was expanding debris and superheated plasma. The humans fired again and again, each shot punching through multiple swarm ships. The barrels glowed white-hot from the friction, but the humans did not stop. They could not be bothered with heat dissipation or barrel wear. They simply kept shooting. By the ancestors, or whispered, they are using kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds, the energy required, the heat generation. How is their ship not melting? Because they built it not to, said, finally understanding. They built it to survive hell. The swarm adapted, as they always did. The drones began evasive maneuvers, spreading out to make targeting harder. They launched acid projectiles and bioelectric pulses, the attacks that had destroyed Council ships within minutes. The Indomitable flew through the barrage like it was rain. The acid splashed against hull armor that had been designed to survive atmospheric re-entry at combat speeds. The bioelectric pulses that should have fried every system merely made the lights flicker. All power to forward shields. Min's voice remained calm as if he were ordering lunch instead of charging into certain death. Dong, prepare boarding teams Alpha and Bravo. Translator must have malfunctioned. Did he say boarding teams? He is going to board a swarm hive ship. Wu's voice came through on the tactical channel. She sounded almost bored. Standard procedure for eliminating command nodes. Ambassador, you may want to route visual feed to your secondary monitors. This will be educational. The Indomitable crashed through the swarm defensive line, its shields burning bright from thousands of impacts. Then it did something that made 3 hearts stop. It rammed directly into the side of a swarm hive ship. The impact should have destroyed both vessels. Instead, the human ship's reinforced bow punched through the organic hull like a blade. For a moment, both ships hung in space, locked together in a deadly embrace. Then the boarding began. The visual feed showed Sergeant Dong and his team of 40 humans flowing into the breach. They wore armored suits that made them look even more massive than they were. Each carried weapons that looked like they belonged in heavy weapons emplacements, not in the hands of individual soldiers. The swarm met them with hundreds of drones in the narrow corridors, sharp claws designed to tear through metal, acid sacs that could melt armor, numbers that should have overwhelmed any force. The humans met them with controlled fury. Dong moved like death itself through the corridors. His weapon spat metal at incredible rates, each shot calculated and precise. When swarm drones got close, he used his armored fists and the sheer mass of his body to crush them. He was not elegant. He was not graceful. He was brutally, terrifyingly effective. Behind him, Medic Jin worked in conditions that should have been impossible. A soldier went down with acid eating through his armor. She was there in seconds, injecting antitoxins, sealing the breach, all while firing her sidearm at approaching drones with her free hand. Her movements were so practiced that they looked like a dance. Heal, shoot, move, heal, shoot, move. Target the neural cluster, Wu's voice directed from the Indomitable's bridge. 3 levels down, bearing 180. Copy that, Dong responded. He sounded slightly out of breath but not panicked. Bin, we need an access point. A smaller human pushed forward, carrying a device that did not recognize. Specialist Bin placed it against a bulkhead and stepped back. The device emitted a high-pitched whine, then exploded. The bulkhead evaporated, revealing the passage below. Breaching charges, Bin explained to no one in particular. Human invention, very useful for making doors where doors are not wanted. The team dropped through the hole into even deeper levels of the hive ship. The swarm threw everything at them. Larger warrior drones with armor plating, bioelectric nets, acid floods that should have dissolved them. The humans pushed forward. When their weapons ran dry, they used backup weapons. When those ran dry, they used knives. When they ran out of knives, they used their armored hands. They fought with a determination that seemed to transcend logic. Back on the Indomitable, something else was happening. Engineer Wu Jin was arguing with Captain Min. "Captain, the reactor is already at 110% capacity. If we push it harder, we could breach containment. We need to maintain shields while the boarding team is vulnerable," Min replied. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. "Push it to 130%. Sir, the safety protocols. Override them." There was a pause. Then Wu Jin's voice came back, steady and resolved. "Yes, sir. Overriding safeties. Reactor going to 130%. May our ancestors forgive us for this insanity." The shields around the Indomitable blazed brighter as impossible amounts of power flowed through them. The swarm concentrated their fire, trying to crack through to the vulnerable ship. The shields held, barely. Inside the hive ship, Dong's team reached the neural cluster. It pulsed with sickly light, organic and technological at once. Tendrils of flesh and wire spread throughout the ship, the brain that coordinated thousands of swarm drones. "Planting charges," Bin reported, placing the explosive devices with practiced efficiency. 30 seconds to detonation. "All teams fall back to extraction point," Dong ordered. They ran. Behind them, the swarm realized what was happening and threw every remaining drone at the retreating humans. The corridor became a killing ground. Jin was hit by acid spray and went down. Another soldier, a man whose name did not know, threw himself over her to shield her from further attacks while others returned fire. 10 seconds. The human who had protected Jin was dead, his armor breached in multiple places. But Jin was alive. She grabbed his body, refusing to leave him behind, and was dragged toward the extraction point by 2 other soldiers. 5 seconds. They made it through the breach just as the explosives detonated. The neural cluster exploded in a shower of biological debris and sparks. The swarm drones throughout the hive ship spasmed and went still, their connection to the hive mind severed. The Indomitable disengaged and accelerated away from the dying hive ship. Behind it, the massive organic vessel began to collapse in on itself. On the tactical display, something remarkable happened. The thousands of swarm drones in that sector stopped their coordinated attack. Without the hive node to direct them, they began fighting among themselves, confused and directionless. "All ships advance," General ordered, his voice filled with something had not heard in weeks. "Hope. Focus fire on the disorganized sectors." The fleet surged forward, and for the first time since the war began, the swarm retreated. Not because they had been defeated by numbers, but because they had been decapitated by precision. In the Indomitable's medical bay, Jin treated the wounded while tears streamed down her face. She had saved everyone she could. But 3 humans had died in the boarding action, 3 out of 40, a 92% survival rate. By standards, it was a miracle. By human standards, it was an acceptable casualty rate. Realize then what made humans so terrifying. It was not their technology or their tactics or their physical abilities. It was their willingness to pay the price that victory demanded. They measured success not by who survived, but by whether the mission was accomplished. They were not monsters. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had learned that sometimes, to protect what you love, you must become what you fear. And they were winning. After the battle, Ambassador could not sleep. His mind kept replaying what he had witnessed. The humans charging into impossible odds. the casual way they accepted casualties, the terrible efficiency of their violence. He found himself outside the docking bay where the Indomitable was berthed for repairs. The ship's hull bore scars from the battle, long gouges where swarm acid had eaten through layers of armor. Human crew members moved across the surface in vacuum suits, patching the damage with welding torches that burned bright in the darkness. "Ambassador," the voice came from behind him. Lieutenant Commander Wu stood in the corridor, holding two containers of what looked like hot liquid. "You appear troubled. On Earth, we have a tradition. When someone cannot sleep, we share a warm drink and talk. Would you join me?" Followed her to one of the observation lounges. The view showed Prime below, peaceful and beautiful. Wu handed him one of the containers. The liquid inside was dark and bitter, but the warmth was comforting. "This is called coffee," Wu explained. "It contains a stimulant that helps us stay alert. For humans, it is both a ritual and a necessity." She smiled slightly. "We joke that our civilization runs on coffee and stubbornness." "Lieutenant Commander, I need to understand," said, setting down the container. "What I saw today. Your people fought with such violence, such willingness to die. General Orr says you lost 3 soldiers in the boarding action and Captain Min listed it as an acceptable outcome. How can death be acceptable?" Wu was quiet for a long moment. "Would you like to see Earth, Ambassador? Really see it? Not the sanitized reports in your council archives, but the truth of what made us." "Yes," said. "I need to know what kind of people I have brought to my world." Wu activated a holographic display. The image of a blue and green planet appeared, rotating slowly. It looked beautiful, peaceful even. "This is Earth. From space it looks like paradise, does it not?" "It does." "It is not." Wu's voice became harder. "Let me show you." The display zoomed down to the planet's surface. The first image showed a massive spiral of clouds spanning thousands of kilometers. "This is what we call a hurricane. Winds over 300 kilometers per hour. It can level entire cities. Earth produces dozens of these every year." The image shifted. The ground was shaking, buildings collapsing. Earthquakes. The planet's crust is broken into plates that grind against each other. When they slip, cities fall. Millions can die in seconds. Another shift. A mountain exploding, spewing molten rock and ash into the sky. Volcanic eruptions. Earth has over 1,500 active volcanoes. Any one of them could cause a mass extinction event. Watched in growing horror as Wu showed him more. Tornadoes that ripped everything from the ground. Tsunamis that drowned coastlines. Floods, droughts, wildfires that consumed entire forests. Earth was not a planet, it was a death trap. "And this is just the weather," Wu continued. "Let me show you the life that evolved in this hell." The display showed creatures that made skin turn pale with fear. Massive predators with teeth like knives. Tiny insects whose venom could kill in minutes. Creatures that hunted in packs with intelligence and strategy. Plants that could poison with a touch. "This is a tiger," Wu said, showing a striped cat larger than a. "It can run faster than your ground vehicles. Its claws can tear through metal. It kills by crushing the neck of its prey." She paused. "Humans used to hunt these for sport." "For sport, could not believe it. Why?" "Because they also hunted us. For thousands of years, Ambassador, humans were both predator and prey. We had to become smarter, faster, more dangerous than everything else on our world, or we would die." The display shifted again, showing human history. Watched armies clashing with primitive weapons, cities burning, millions dying in conflicts that span continents. "You fought each other," he whispered. "Constantly," Wu agreed. "When we were not fighting Earth, we fought ourselves. Every technology you see on the Indomitable was developed for warfare. Our ships, our weapons, our medical knowledge, all of it came from trying to kill each other more efficiently." "But why? Why so much violence?" Wu leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Because Earth gave us no choice. Resources were limited, Territory was precious. To survive, we had to compete. We developed nations, tribes, groups that fought for dominance. It was brutal. It was terrible, but it made us strong. She pulled up another image. Humans in primitive clothing chasing an animal across an open plain. Do you know how humans hunted before we had weapons, Ambassador? We ran. We chased our prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are endurance predators. We do not give up. We do not stop. We pursue until our target falls. That is horrifying. That is survival. Wu's voice was gentle but firm. Every species in the galaxy evolved on garden worlds. You had abundant food, mild weather, few predators. You developed philosophy and art because you had the luxury to do so. You did not need weapons because nothing threatened you. She gestured to the image of Earth still rotating on the display. We had none of that. Every day was a battle. Every generation that survived passed on the traits that kept them alive. Strength, endurance, intelligence, aggression. We are the descendants of winners in the most brutal competition imaginable. Engineer Wu Jin entered the lounge carrying a data pad. He nodded too. Ambassador, I heard you wanted to understand humans better. He sat down and pulled up more information. Let me tell you about human biology. Your gravity, Wu Jin began, is approximately 4 meters per second squared. Earth's gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, more than double. Every human alive today has bones and muscles that developed under that pressure. We are, by your standards, impossibly strong. He showed comparative data. A can lift approximately their own body weight. A human can lift 3 to 4 times their body weight without training. With training, much more. Our bones are nearly twice as dense as yours. Our muscle fibers are more efficient. We evolved to carry heavy loads over long distances because that was necessary to survive. And your temperature tolerance, Wu Jin continued, showing graphs that made feel faint, can survive in a range of about 15 degrees Celsius. Humans can function from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius, a 70-degree range. We developed the ability to survive extreme cold and extreme heat because Earth has both. What about your medical capabilities? Asked, thinking of Jin performing surgery in a combat zone. Wu Jin smiled grimly. Human medicine is advanced because humans are very good at injuring each other. We have been treating combat wounds for thousands of years. We know how to keep a body alive when it should be dead because we have had extensive practice. Humans can survive injuries that would kill any other species, Wu added. We have redundant systems. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs. If one fails, we continue functioning. Our blood clots quickly to prevent death from bleeding. Our bodies can heal from incredible damage given time. You are describing monsters, said quietly. No, Wu Jin replied. We are describing survivors. Ambassador, do you know why the Council quarantined Earth? The report said it was too dangerous for contact. The report was incomplete. Wu Jin pulled up the original survey data. The Council found Earth 200 years ago. They observed us from orbit for 6 months. What they saw terrified them. We were in the middle of what we call World War II. 60 million humans died in that conflict. Entire cities were destroyed by bombs that split atoms. The Council saw us developing nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. They saw us fighting with industrial efficiency. He leaned back, his expression sad. The Council classified Earth as a death world and quarantined the system, not to protect us from the galaxy, Ambassador, to protect the galaxy from us. They saw what we were capable of when we turned our violence against each other, and they decided we were too dangerous to contact. But we evolved past that, Wu said. We learned to direct our aggression outward instead of inward. We unified our species and reached for the stars, but we did not become soft. We did not forget how to fight. We just became more selective about when we fight. Sat in silence, processing everything he had learned. The humans were not cruel. They were not evil. They were simply the product of a world that demanded excellence or extinction. They were what happened when survival required becoming apex predators. "I understand now," said slowly. "When I sent that distress call, I asked for help from anyone who could fight, and the universe sent me the only species that never learned how not to fight." "Yes," Wu agreed. "But understand this, Ambassador. We fight because we choose to, not because we must. We could have ignored your message. We could have stayed in our own space and let the swarm consume you. But we came because you asked, and because protecting others is what we decided our strength should be used for." "We are not heroes," Wu Jin added. "We are too flawed, too violent, too damaged for that. But we are willing to stand between the innocent and the darkness. That is enough." Looked out at the stars, understanding finally what he had unleashed. The Galactic Council had tried to keep Earth contained, tried to keep humans separate from civilized space. But desperation had broken that containment. Now the galaxy would have to face the truth. Humanity was here. Humanity was powerful. And humanity had decided that its strength would be used to protect rather than conquer. Whether that was a blessing or a curse, only time would tell. But looking at Wu and Wu Jin, seeing the determination and honor in their eyes despite the violence they were capable of, felt something unexpected. Hope. If these could learn to be protectors, perhaps there was hope for everyone. "Thank you," said quietly, "for coming when we called, for being what we needed even if we did not understand what that was." Wu smiled, and for the first time it was not the smile of a predator. It was the smile of a friend. "You are welcome, Ambassador. Now let us finish this war so you can go home to your family." Outside, the stars shone bright and cold. Somewhere in the darkness, the swarm was regrouping. But for the first time, they faced an enemy they did not understand. An enemy from a world they could not imagine. An enemy that refused to quit. They faced humanity, and humanity had never learned how to lose. The war had reached its final phase. 3 months of fighting had pushed the swarm back system by system, but everyone knew the truth. The swarm was not retreating. It was consolidating. Every drone, every hive ship, every warrior was converging on a single location deep in uncharted space. The primary hive cluster. Captain Min stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical display with grim determination. Around his ship, the entire remaining Galactic Council fleet had gathered. Over 2,000 vessels representing every species that could still fight. It looked impressive until you saw what they were facing. The swarm had assembled billions of drones around their primary hive. The readings were almost impossible to believe. The hive cluster itself was the size of a small moon, a massive organic structure that pulsed with diseased light. It was the heart of the swarm, the central intelligence that coordinated every drone across dozens of star systems. "Captain," Wu said from her station, "even with the Council fleet, our tactical models show less than a 5% chance of reaching the hive core. The defensive formations are too dense." "Then we need to change the mathematics," Min replied calmly. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Min, I will not lie to you. What we are about to attempt is dangerous. Many of us will not return, but if we succeed, we will end this war. The swarm dies here today, or it consumes everything we love." He paused, letting that sink in. "I am taking a strike team into the hive cluster. We will plant a thermonuclear device at its core. The explosion will destroy the primary hive and collapse the swarm's coordination network across all sectors. Your job is to keep the swarm busy so they do not realize what we are doing until it is too late." Ambassador, listening from the command ship, felt his heart sink. "Captain, that is a suicide mission." "Yes," Min agreed without hesitation. "But it is a suicide mission that will save billions of lives. I consider that an acceptable trade." The strike team assembled in the Indomitable's hangar bay. Captain Min, Lieutenant Commander Wu, Medic Jin, Sergeant Dong, Specialist Bin, and Engineer Wu Jin. 6 humans against a hive that contained billions. Equipment check, Min ordered. Each team member their armor, weapons, and the device they would carry into hell. It was a modified thermonuclear weapon, enhanced with technology the Council had banned centuries ago because it was too destructive. The humans had simply shrugged and built it anyway. "Sir," Wujin said quietly, "the timer on this device has a maximum delay of 30 minutes. Once we activate it, we will have 30 minutes to reach minimum safe distance. Based on our infiltration speed estimates, we will not make it out." "I know," Min replied. "Anyone who wants to stay behind, this is your chance. No shame, no judgment." No one moved. Jin smiled slightly. "Captain, where you go, we go. That is what being human means." The strike team launched in a small assault shuttle, racing toward the hive cluster, while the Council fleet engaged the swarm defenses. The space between them and the hive became a storm of weapons fire and dying ships. Vessels sacrificed themselves to draw swarm attention. The humans watched in silence as good people died to give them a chance. "They are buying us time with their lives," Wu said softly. "We cannot fail them." The shuttle plunged into the hive cluster, its shields burning from thousands of impacts. Bin piloted with desperate skill, weaving through organic passages and clouds of swarm drones. The shuttle took hit after hit, systems failing, hull breaching, but it kept flying. "I can get us to the core," Bin shouted over the alarms, "but the shuttle will not survive the trip back." "Worry about that later," Min ordered. "Just get us there." They crashed into a chamber deep within the hive, the shuttle's impact crushing through layers of organic walls. The team emerged into a nightmare landscape of flesh and metal, pulsing with the heartbeat of the swarm consciousness. The swarm realized too late what was happening. Thousands of drones converged on their position. The humans formed a defensive circle around Wu Jin as he began assembling the device. Dong's weapon roared, cutting down drones by the dozens, but for every one that fell, 2 more appeared. "We cannot hold this position forever." "Then hold it for now." Min returned fire, his shots precise despite the chaos. A drone got close and he crushed its head with his armored fist. There was no elegance here, no grace, just brutal survival. Jin worked on the wounded while fighting. Bin took a hit, acid burning through his leg armor. Jin was there instantly, injecting antitoxins while firing her weapon with her free hand. "Bin, stay with me. You are not dying here." "Not planning on it," Bin gasped, forcing himself to stand. He limped back to his position and kept fighting. Wu fought with cold efficiency, but Min saw the fear in her eyes. Not fear of death, fear of failure, fear that they would die and the swarm would win anyway. "Device armed," Wu Jin announced. 30-minute countdown initiated. "Everyone out," Min ordered, "back to the shuttle." They ran through corridors filling with drones. The path they had fought through was now blocked by swarm forces. Dong led the way, his massive armored form smashing through obstacles. Behind them, Wu laid explosive charges to slow the pursuit. The shuttle was a wreck, barely functional. Bin threw himself into the pilot's seat and began desperately trying to coax life from the damaged systems. "Engines are gone. I can give us maneuvering thrusters, but we cannot achieve escape velocity." Wu Jin pushed forward, his face set with determination. "I can repair the engine coupling, but someone needs to stay with the shuttle to manually control the repair from outside." Everyone understood what he was saying. Whoever stayed would die when the device detonated. "I will do it," Wu Jin said before anyone could argue. "I am the engineer. I am the best qualified, and someone needs to make sure that device detonates properly." "Wu Jin," Min began. "Captain, this is not a debate." Wu Jin's voice was firm. "My family has a saying, a tree that stands alone protects the forest. Let me be that tree." Jin was crying, but she did not protest. Dong saluted, fist over heart. Wu simply nodded, her jaw tight. Min gripped Wu Jin's shoulder. You will be remembered, I promise you that. Good, Wu Jin replied with a sad smile. Now go make this count. He stepped out of the shuttle and began working on the engine coupling with desperate speed. The others launched, the shuttle barely limping away from the hive cluster. Behind them, Wu Jin worked alone, surrounded by approaching drones, buying them time with his life. Engines at 40%, Bin reported, tears streaming down his face. It is enough. Wu Jin did it. The comm crackled. Wu Jin's voice came through, calm despite the sounds of combat in the background. The device is stable. Detonation in 5 minutes. Get clear. And hey, tell my story to someone, will you? Let them know Earth sends its best. We will, Min promised. Thank you, brother. The communication cut off. The shuttle cleared the minimum safe distance with seconds to spare. The thermonuclear device detonated, enhanced by band technology, creating an explosion visible across the entire star system. The primary hive cluster simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant along with billions of swarm drones. And one human who had chosen to stand alone, so others could live. Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. Without the primary hive to coordinate them, swarm forces began attacking each other. The hive mind had collapsed. The war was over. But the cost had been severe. 6 weeks later, stood at a ceremony on Prime. The humans who had come to help were returning to Earth. Of the 300 who had arrived, only 89 remained. The others had died in battles across a dozen systems. Their names would be carved into a monument of black stone, along with the and other species who had fallen fighting beside them. Captain Min stood before the Galactic Council, accepting their gratitude with quiet dignity. He looked older now and tired. The weight of command had carved lines into his face. Captain Min, the council speaker began, on behalf of all civilized species, we thank humanity for your sacrifice. We offer you a permanent seat on the council and the lifting of all quarantines on Earth. You have proven yourselves to be not the monsters we feared, but the protectors we needed. Min bowed slightly. We accept with one condition. Humanity will share its technology and military training with any species who wishes to learn, but you must never ask us to fight in wars of aggression. We will defend. We will protect, but we will not conquer. That is our choice. It is agreed, the speaker said. Later, found Min standing alone at the memorial stone, his hand resting on Wu Jin's name among the many carved there. Captain, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Ambassador. I believe we have earned that right. Do you regret coming, losing so many of your people? Min was silent for a long moment. Every night I dream of the ones who did not return. I wonder if I could have made different choices, better choices. He turned to face. But regret coming? No, you sent a message asking for help. We answered. That is what we chose to be when we left Earth, protectors, even if it costs us everything. You called yourselves monsters, said, back when you first arrived, but monsters do not sacrifice themselves for strangers. We are what Earth made us, Min replied. Survivors, fighters, killers when we must be. But we decided that our strength would be used to shield others, not to dominate them. That choice is what makes us human, not our violence. He looked up at the stars. The galaxy will never fully trust us. We are too dangerous, too unpredictable, but perhaps that is acceptable. As long as the innocent can sleep safely, it does not matter if they fear us. Wu and Jin joined them. The 3 humans stood together, survivors of a war that had changed the galaxy forever. What will you do now? Asked. Return to Earth, Jin said. Train more crews, more soldiers, more medics. Because now that the galaxy knows we exist, others will call for help, and we will answer. That is our burden, Wu added. We are the ones who evolved in hell and learned to fight back. When darkness comes, we will be there. Min nodded. We are not heroes from your legends, Ambassador. We are just humans, flawed, violent, stubborn humans. But we are humans who chose to be better than our nature demands. That is enough. As the Indomitable prepared to depart, watched from the observation deck, the human ship, battered, sailed into the black. Behind it, Earth's presence hung over the galaxy like a guardian or a threat, depending on perspective. The Council had spent 200 years trying to keep humanity contained. Now humanity was free. The galaxy would have to adjust to a new reality. There were among the stars now, beings forged in conditions no civilized species could imagine, capable of violence beyond measure, but also capable of sacrifice beyond understanding. Remembered Wu Jin's final words, "A tree that stands alone protects the forest." That was humanity, standing alone against the darkness so others would not have to. They had begged for help, not knowing would answer. Now they understood what that meant. It meant having protectors who were equally capable of great violence and great compassion. It meant being guarded by beings who had learned to be monsters so others would not need to. It meant the galaxy had changed forever, and perhaps thought that change would be for the better, as long as humanity remembered the choice they made, as long as they remained protectors rather than conquerors. Only time would tell if that hope would hold. But for now, the war was over. The swarm was defeated, and across the stars, people slept safely because 6 humans had walked into death with their eyes open, knowing they would not return. That was what did. They paid the price so others would not have to. And they would do it again.